everybody. Welcome to the monthly podcast exploring the space between process and play. What's that? It's structured creativity. And I am your host, Najma Islam. I have been joined by my friend, Greg Hennessey, who I will introduce in just a moment. But let's say hi. Hey, Greg.
Hi.
It's lovely to have you on. So before we start, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Greg Hennessey. I am the game design director at CCP Games. Freshly moved to Iceland, so I'm acclimatizing to life here. I've been designing video games and software for 22 years. Feels weird to say that. So I've been around. I've kind of worked on a little bit of everything, I'll say. So yeah, that's just a bit about me.
I love that. A little bit of everything. That's what I'm all about as well. I have a very weird, squiggly career, and I love talking to people with like weird, squiggly careers. So let's get into it. Yeah. How did you always want to be what you're doing right now?
I don't think so, actually. So I went to a video game school when it was like a very new thing.
Wowzers.
And it was one of the first ones in Vancouver, BC, where I'm from, in Canada. And I thought I was going to get into doing game art. So I had like more of an artistic background, and I enrolled in the design program thinking I was going to do art. And I did some art, but I kind of discovered design along the way. And I was like, oh, damn, I kind of like this better, actually.
What was it about design that got its hooks into you?
I just think there were so many, like it touched so many different elements of the game instead of just purely art that was enticing to me, like audio and art and animation and everything really. And so I think it just tickled my brain more to have that experience.
That's amazing. And so like a video game school when it was still fresh and kind of new, like what did that look like? And I guess like if you have a basis for comparison with, what other people might have been going to at the time.
Back in my day. So again, 22 years ago when I went to school, or 23 now. The school was called CDIS, the Center for Digital Imaging and Sound. And really it was an audio school. And I think they did like video stuff and whatever. And they kind of went like, hey, video games are becoming a thing. Why don't we do that? And it was one of these schools like really just, I don't think it knew what to do. So it just hired a bunch of professionals that were like in the video game industry to be like, hey, come teach a level design class. Hey, come teach. They should probably learn some animation, teach them 3D software. So it was a lot of just like a little bit of everything, which like I appreciated actually. It did help me learn how to interface and talk with a big variety of people. I think they still like as a craft, design wasn't fully formed in the way it feels like it is today. And so there, my education in design was like, write a design doc and like pitch it to everybody. And well, my professor would be like, there's not enough purple in your design document, which is like not very a helpful thing, but
simply
like,
not enough purple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so so you graduate from CDIS, is that right? And then what does your career look like after that?
So the transition was actually CDIS got bought by the Arts Institute, which might still be around. I'm not sure. Halfway through.
Wow.
And what was cool was they actually ended up connecting students with professionals at the end and kind of taking on these student projects that were mentored by industry professionals. I opted out of it, but my friends went in and they were like, actually, Greg, you should just come help us anyway. And I did. So I ended up making a bunch of like industry connections that were like mentoring the group. Then at my first place of work, which was Radical Entertainment, in the Wayback Machine. So they were designers and engineers and stuff from Radical who were mentoring this group of students. And at the end, I was just like looking for work, and I kept applying to jobs at Radical and talking to these guys and being like, hey, I see you have a QA job. I'm going to apply. Would you be like down to talk to me about it, or like help me make a connection with somebody there I could talk to about it? And that was my transition. I went from student project to QA and then to design.
Wow, amazing. And so it was radical, and then were you elsewhere before you went to your current workplace now?
Oh, I've been
You've been all over the
I've been
place.
I've been all over the place. So
All
I'll
over
give
the
you the
place.
kind of like my career map, I guess, is so I was at Radical. My first game was Scarface: The World Is Yours. If anybody ever played that, kind of a GTA like open world game.
Uh-huh.
Then I went to EA Black Box and worked on Need for Speed for a little while.
Mm.
I was hired as a game designer, which they didn't really have on the team at the time, and I don't think they really knew what to do with me, so they put me on the interface team.
Oh,
And I was
okay.
basically
Interesting.
I was basically a UX designer, which
Okay.
was still kind of new to games at the time. Like there wasn't really UX designers, but that's kind of what I did. Personally, I'm not a huge racing car person, so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I needed a job. I wanted some more experience. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then my friends at Radical called me back after Scarface. I was on contract, so I did not get renewed because that's how
This
things
does.
work sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but it's how they work sometimes.
Yeah.
But they called me back and they're like, "We've got a new game. We're working on prototype. Do you want to come back and work on this game?" And I was like, "Yes, let's go." So prototype, probably my favorite game that I've worked on. By the way, it's like if anybody's played it, it's a action open world tower fantasy game where you can like run up buildings and
Ooh,
helicopters and stuff and
very
tear people
cool.
apart and consume them into your body. It was a pretty good, like it was a pretty fun game to work on.
Uh,
So I went on and worked on that with them. Then I worked on we were bought by Activision as a part of the Vivendi Universal acquiring Blizzard
sure.
conglomerate thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, "You guys do superhero-y stuff, right? How about you guys do Spider-Man for the movie video game?"
Oh, wow.
There's no Spider-Man 4 movie for a reason. It got canceled, and so too
Right.
did the game.
Yeah.
And then they went, okay, quickly, prototype 2, go. So I did some pre-pro on that. Then took a year off, went to Japan, did some crazy stuff, totally different life adventure. Came
Wow.
back home,
Yeah.
and I had a couple friends who were like, "Greg, what are you doing, man? Do you want to like we're a couple engineers. We're starting a studio. Do you want to do something with us? Like, we need help. You want to come
Mm-hmm.
design, do some art, just like help us out?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So the company's called Blueback Games. Might not be around anymore, but I was there for 7 years. We started a company, built
Oh,
it,
amazing.
ended up making basically a social game platform more than a game itself. Like we tried to
Okay.
make many games and just kind of spin them up quickly and get them on Facebook back when like the like Candy Crush and big boom of
Oh,
games kind of
yes.
thing.
I was on
Mhm.
Farmville a lot. Yes, I do remember those days. Yeah.
That era. So we're like, can we do this? Can we get like fire some games up there? Let's go.
Yeah.
We didn't make a game that stuck, but we made an engine that worked, and a bunch of people bought that, including like social casinos and various things. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
ended up basically doing live ops and managing game economies and building features for mobile games and stuff like that for a while.
Uh-huh.
Then I went to
Then.
Phoenix Labs,
Uh-huh.
worked on Dauntless for a little bit, a couple
Mm.
new games, and then over to Timber in Vancouver, which RIP, worked on a new game over there.
Mm-hmm.
Industry is what it is. That studio game is no longer. And
Mm-hmm.
then I found my way over here to Iceland on EVE Online.
Wow, talk about squiggly and all over the place and doing a little bit of everything. That's really cool. It just sounds like you're really delightful to work with because apparently people are like, we like him. Do you want to come work with us?
I hope so. I try. I try. Yeah.
So that's really great. I'd love to touch on that a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of your network, and it sounds like that you nurtured relationships to the point where people would call you back to projects, so I want to keep working with you. I mean, would you say that that's like a really big part of like how you got to where you are now? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of the hard work and the skill and stuff, but do you think that's like a big part of like being part of the game dev industry?
Yeah, I
Mm,
think as tough as it is sometimes, especially for folks who are just starting out, like
yeah.
I think network is like 99% of that. Like, of course, I try to work hard. Of course, I try to make an impact on people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and do good things that turn out high quality. Sometimes things get canceled along the way, but
Yeah.
um, really most of this is people. It is knowing people. It is having people who go like, oh, I know somebody who's good at that, or I'd love to work with this person again, or
Yeah.
with this job actually, like someone here at CCP from Vancouver
Mm-hmm.
um, offered this job to my best friend, and in Vancouver, my best friend was like, actually, like my buddy needs a job, so I'm going to hook them up and see how it goes. And it
Wow.
turned out all right. So
Yeah.
lots of that.
I think it's because it's a creative industry as well, and I think creativity ultimately comes from people. So I personally feel that the people in your life and the people in your network, I guess, are so important for other reasons than like getting ahead in your career, but also just like that support and being able to bounce ideas off each other and creativity. Look at that segue! What a pro! So that segues us into talking about creativity, I guess. So for you, what does creativity look like?
Wow. I guess it's tough where I am in my career. What
Mm,
creativity looks like. I feel like people think, game design director, you're like drawing wild stuff on a board and coming. Um, I think that's such a small part of my job that I barely get to do.
mm-hmm.
Creativity to me is creating space for others to be creative more than anything else. Like I feel like I had my run at it. It was good. I have
Mm-hmm.
my own like personal projects and things that I like to do on the side for myself. But in
Yeah.
my job, in my role, in my capacity, it
Mm-hmm.
is really that is looking for opportunities to help others be creative and make that space for them.
That's really wonderful. I mean, and do you have a sense of, I guess, being in the role that you are as a game design director, of when you can see when people are having those like aha moments or like really in the zone, as it were, and yeah, and or even the other way around, right? Do you see when people are like, oh, they're really not like achieving their creative potential here, and they need to do something about it? Like, I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard one to talk about. I think
Mhm.
it's vibes.
Vibes,
There's
yeah,
vibes.
yeah, yeah. That's
Like
valid.
when the vibes are off, when people are like uh checking out like early, they're not like an overtime thing. Like
Yeah,
do your job, go home. I
yeah.
Everybody do that. But if ever people are like, yeah, I'm out, punch the clock.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm seeing that happen, if people aren't feeling like motivated or inspired to just like be in that zone, like there's been
Mm.
times where I've had to tell people like log off, go home now. I see you, you're excited, but like stop, come
Yeah,
back tomorrow.
right.
Like you can tell somebody's like passionate and fired up about something, and in
Mm.
that creative space. So I think part of it's vibes. I think this is another one that vibes touches on is process, like
Mm-hmm.
making sure that the process we work in has space for creativity and doesn't just like Eve Online, we are expansion after expansion after expansion, and it's really easy
Mm.
to not meaningfully build space for people to be creative in if we don't manage that. So
Yeah.
um that kind of stuff, yeah.
I That's really interesting because being in a live ops environment, would you say um I'm purely going off my my, I guess, own ignorance, I guess, asking you, like, can it get easy to almost fall into a trap of just churning things out rather than, like you say, meaningfully kind of engaging in your work creatively?
Very easily, I
Yeah.
think you could fall into that trap.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people and places and studios do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's likely ebbs and flows of it. I think a game like Eve Online's been around for 22 years. So if you look
Ooh.
at older games that have been like doing the live ops thing for a while, likely they've had like ups and downs and lulls and spikes of
Mm-hmm.
creativity. And I think for me in my role, and especially because I'm like fairly fresh here still, just almost a year in, I have to use my energy to like create those spikes for people.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to reveal any secrets or anything that you have up your sleeve that is like, patented to you personally, but do you have any kind of like tips or tricks about helping to empower others to really reach those creative spikes or like discover that creativity within themselves?
Yeah. Um, I don't have any secrets. I'm an open book. I don't think like I think our industry benefits from not having secrets and
Mm,
us sharing more. So I'll
hmm
always be open to talking about stuff. Um, what are my secrets to creating spikes? I think the first one is making sure that people have time. Just
mm,
time. That's it. Like people can get very busy um, in the post-COVID world, or if there's still COVID, but like post-lockdown era.
mm,
Now I found like meeting culture is like been heightened. Like people tend to book more and more and more and more meetings. Like I
mm,
just noticed that as a thing. Um, there's a lot of conversations on LinkedIn and stuff about meeting culture. I think just like noticing that creep up and then being like, hey, like I need to stop some of these meetings. I need to pull people out. I need to create space. I need to ask us to slow down. I need to go talk to other stakeholders on this project and be like, designers need time to think. They
hmm
need to go look at other games and play them and have fun. They need to play our game and think about it. They need space to just play. Play is a big one as well. So if you don't have
mm.
time, you likely won't be playing. You just go noodle with some stuff on a whiteboard. Just draw and just think and play.
Yeah.
And play is a big component to me that leads to creativity.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, so it feels like there's time and there's I guess like space to for yourself to let your mind wander, I guess, and daydream. I think is a really I personally feel is really important as well. For me personally, I feel like a lot of my creative process is just kind of like just staring out the window or just like doing
Mhm.
something else entirely. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And meeting culture, and that's really important. So I am a real stickler for the power of like a well-run meeting. Um so I feel like it's almost like a problematic, like I don't know, if someone was meant to, like if someone were to ever make a caricature of me, it would be like Notion meetings and like I don't know, like something else, like probably the cat you said at this point.
Yeah.
But I feel that meetings can really make or break like a work culture. I mean, how about you? Are you like a real stickler for like, okay guys, we've got to really keep this meeting really tight? What sort of things are you kind of implementing in your own work culture?
Mm,
Yeah.
good question. I do think meeting culture and sort of like the hygiene of meetings is very important.
Mm,
So one, like pruning meetings that no longer need to happen. I think that's not a thing that I see happen enough. So
mm,
I like to kind of examine like, hey, let's look ahead. What's like, we have all these 5 regular meetings and now we're adding more regular meetings. Like which ones do we need to like trim down
yeah,
on? That can just easily bloat without anybody managing that kind of thing.
totally.
I think in meetings, meeting culture stuff, just etiquette, like
Mm,
have clear goals, take notes, like
yes.
follow up, that kind of stuff. Um, I say that, but it's easy. It's easy to get lost in the sauce and not do that sometimes. I'm guilty of it
Oh,
occasionally. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think also even things like, when you're busy, sometimes like things can just like lapse, right? I think, like I try to take, at least like 5-10 minutes before a meeting starts to like feel mentally prepped and kind of like read up on the agenda and stuff. But then when you're busy and you've
Mhm.
got like things back to back, you don't do those kinds of things and it's easy for that to build up. So meeting hygiene, I like it. Well, that also brings me to process, which is like a big word that you mentioned earlier. In terms of process, I'd love to ask you, like, what are your favorite tools, I guess, and I guess in relation to empowering creativity in others or helping others find their
Mhm.
best work.
Yeah. So I mean, there's digital tools and physical tools.
Mm.
I will always prefer physical tools
Mm-hmm.
like whiteboard, sticky notes, markers,
Mm.
paper.
Is it just like the
Um,
tactile, like, wait, is that draws you to that stuff?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I have noticed over the years with all the design sort of meetings that I've run, when it, again, doing remote work for a while, using Miro and stuff like that just does not have the same impact as
Mm.
standing around a whiteboard and moving things around. I think there's actually like neuroscience behind like the tactile nature of like I take a thing and I move it over here, and like how that registers in our brains is totally different.
Gotcha.
So I love physical. I love physical stuff. For digital tools, Notion you mentioned. I love Notion.
Yeah.
I hate that everywhere at work uses like Confluence instead, and Confluence is trying to get better, but like it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I miss Notion so much. Um,
I swear I don't work for Notion, but like I do love Notion. Yeah. I'm so glad you
yeah,
said that. You're my
I think
people.
I've sold like at least 50 people on Notion now. I should like get a
Honestly,
little bit of kickback.
I feel like let's get in contact with Notion
Notion, if you're
directly
watching
after
this,
this. Yeah.
yeah, like come find us.
Yeah.
We'll work for you.
We're not sponsored by Notion
Yeah,
yet.
not yet.
Not
I
yet.
want I want a t-shirt at least.
Yeah, exactly. But
Um,
yes, Notion and yeah, and how about like any other digital tools to help facilitate that creativity?
yeah, actually, like as a designer, I think this is a tool. No matter what kind of designer you are, you should learn how to use Figma, and Figma is awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I tend to use it kind of like a whiteboard where like I'll be talking about a system, like let's say a progression system, a skill tree or something. And while we're jamming, I'll just kind of like sketch it out. Like I'll take shapes and I'll be like, oh, okay, so we've got nodes and they connect like this. And like
Oh.
while we're talking, you kind of see it start to manifest live and somebody goes, no, not quite like that, more like that. And I'm like this, like that. Yeah, like that. And I think it just like, it's a really powerful tool just to be able to even quickly mock stuff up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can take things a lot further in there if you want to, but I think that level of just like very like I am using shapes and lines and colors and shades and stuff is extremely powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think especially when you're trying to use so many words, when, being able to see just like even the ugliest looking like mocked up UI that you can make in like 2 minutes is can be so much more powerful
Yeah.
than just doing that. So that's really cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Figma as well. Um and yeah, can you think of any other digital tools? Or is that kind of like your main core
Um,
stuff that you use in your everyday?
yeah, I mean, I can go way down the rabbit hole on this one. Everybody uses Miro.
Yeah,
I
sure.
like FigJam better, but everybody uses Miro.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah.
Um, it is, it's the modern collaboration tool. It's fine. I
Yeah.
think it does its job all right. Um, I, I'm a huge Unreal guy. I love prototyping stuff in Unreal. So,
Okay, yes.
like,
Yeah. Unreal. Yeah.
yeah.
How long have you been working with Unreal now?
So, 20 years,
10
something like that.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Um
Off and on, but
Yeah, I feel like I have software that I've worked with for like years and years and years, and it's really interesting to see the evolution of that software as you grow up with it.
mhm.
Like I'm a graphic designer, so and a digital artist. So I've grown up, I guess, with like Photoshop and
Mhm.
Illustrator. So how has that been to kind of grow along with these tools and see them like take shape and stuff? Like,
Yeah,
has your relationship with Unreal like changed a lot because of how much it's grown?
tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it really has. It's become a lot easier to use, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and to try stuff out very quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
um, when I started using it, I was actually just modding Unreal Tournament 2004, I think was what it was,
Uh-huh.
something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I didn't even have access to like the full engine. It was more like level editor and then trying to like hack stuff together in that. So
Yeah.
now just the suite of tools that I have and like how quickly I can make something work. Like I haven't even done this yet, but like I want to prototype stuff for Eve in
Mm.
Unreal just because like I can work so fast in it. So it's
Mm.
like, let's do that. I'm not even going to use this prototype. It's just to make an example of something we can do.
Yeah.
Um, and I can do this so quickly in Unreal. So like learning a tool like that in game development, even if you're like a non-technical person, is super powerful.
Yeah, prototyping. I mean, that's a big one. Just to prototyping ideas, prototyping mechanics. Like, I think even in narrative design, there's like a real thing about like you've just got to like write something and write the minimum viable like version of that thing, and see whether that works. Because I think what's really interesting about games is that sometimes like you could have like the best possible process, but the output just kind of like stinks, and it's like really down to like play testing and stuff. So yeah, I mean that brings me to underrated skills. So yeah, what do you think as a game design director and having had the career you've had, what do you think are like really underrated skills in game dev?
Oh, I'm gonna frame this mostly as game design
Okay.
because I did talk about this recently here in Iceland, and when I think about the full spectrum of design as a career, all the different sort of like things you do in your job, there are a few that I think people really just like rally themselves around, and there's a lot of education and access to like growth for those things. But there's other stuff that's just like is a huge part of your job that like nobody teaches you how to do, and you just got to figure out.
Okay, this is the juice. I'm excited. Yes, let's
This is
hear
the
it
juice.
all. Yeah.
So largely, I mean, there's practical design. This is the thing that's you have the easiest access to. It is how to build levels. It's how to write dialogue and do narrative design.
Sure.
It is technical design skills. It's spreadsheeting. There's so many resources for this stuff. This is the exciting stuff that feels really good.
Yeah. It's the stuff that makes it feel like a game dev. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But like my job, my career for most of my career has been like so much more than that. Everything from communication, right? Like communication is a part of design, but I don't think the communication piece is well taught enough. Like people go like, write a game design document, but like really, um, the more I've done this, the more I start to think about like setting vision across a whole team, for example. Like is that is such a hard thing to do. And like the
Yeah.
way I think about it is like I see something in my head
Yeah.
that I've constructed out of pieces that people have given me, and I've built like I'm playing a game in my mind,
Yeah.
and now I need to get an entire development team of 100 people to see that same game. And
Yes.
like
Yeah.
learning how to do that and communicate in such a way that gets people interested, excited, and just even like seeing the same thing is really important, because like so much of like the problem that I see in development is just people not understanding, not agreeing, or seeing different things. And so like so much of my career has been like, how do I how do I close the gap?
The communication. Well, yeah, this is it. I mean, that's really interesting because if you ask 100 people, you say, okay, imagine a dog. They're all going to be imagining a different kind of dog. you
Yes.
know, so it's like a small, fluffy one, a big, terrifying one. Somebody's thinking about a velociraptor. That's where my mind goes. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, out of curiosity as well, like, how many people are you currently managing in your role?
In design here, there is roughly 15-ish
15.
designers right now,
Yeah.
ish. Yeah, about
Yeah.
that. The team is probably 100-ish people
Mm-hmm.
that we
Mm-hmm.
work with
Yeah.
overall. So yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
So communication, I mean, to you, so that's, communicating a vision that you have in your head to people. Um, is that also, I'm imagining a lot of that is negotiating with other stakeholders as well?
Yeah. So let me
Yeah.
get to another skill that
Ooh.
is underrated, which is diplomacy. Um,
Mm.
I think like the bad take on it is politics. The good take on it is diplomacy. I think
Mm.
like a lot of my career has also become down to just like negotiating things with people, right? Like managing stakeholders, like they have expectations and needs and things they're excited about,
Yeah.
um, and knowing how to work with them in a way that just like makes them happy and feel content and safe and heard, and then doing the same thing for your team. And you have this like group of um, people with wildly different backgrounds and experiences and
Yes.
uh, neurodiversities and other things that you just have to like learn how to speak with, learn how to get interested and excited and engaged, and like that is like that takes a tremendous amount of effort and education and growth to like do well.
Yeah, and I imagine that a lot of that is kind of coming into play with your move to Iceland. Have you been finding as well flexing that skill in being in a new culture, being a new country?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's really, it's interesting to me because I am in a new culture,
Mm-hmm.
and then this culture has invited people like myself to Iceland to participate in this thing. So you've got like a core of Icelandic people,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got other people from Europe, from like Poland, Italy, Spain, and all these other places with different backgrounds, um, and everybody's speaking English, which
Mm-hmm.
is like I'm privileged incredibly as like a Western English from being from a Western English speaking country that people are willing to speak my language and I don't have to speak theirs. That's a
Yes.
huge privilege.
Yeah.
But like I recognize that like sometimes there are even language barriers or like someone's trying to express a thing and it doesn't make sense to me, but or it might not make sense to other people. So there's a lot of navigating like
Mm.
just things like that or
Mm-hmm.
cultural things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And talking about diplomacy, there's a lot of, understanding. I feel like a big part of diplomacy and even communication is understanding your own gaps as well, and understanding that you're not always right in situations, or you're coming with a disadvantage or a privilege at some points as well. Yeah, that's really interesting. And can you talk about any other underrated skills, know, specifically in your realm?
I really think so. Just coming back to the communication one again,
Mm,
it's there are like practical like tangible skills within that, like how to write good documents and how to like
sure.
format them. Like that's a subset of like communication.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is learning when not to use a document as well, and like when to
Mm-hmm.
use different mediums of communication. I think is really important.
Yeah.
Um, I think also like most people I've met in games are very good at this, but like learning how to learn is really important as well.
Oh, learning how to learn. That's a really
Hmm.
key one. Yeah, I mean that's always tricky, right? Because whenever you learn a new skill, there's always a sense of what I call you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
You did like you don't have a sense of like how broad this new skill really goes. Um, in your career, and I imagine you've had to do that like several times over, just dipping your toes in so many different areas, but like how have you kind of overcome that gap for yourself and learning how to learn?
I think humility is a big piece of it. First of
Oh,
all, and like
yeah.
being able to like accept that you don't know everything and you're not the best and greatest, especially the more senior you get in your career. Like stay humble,
Yeah.
and stay willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially from other people, even if they have less experience than you. Like that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Ask people to show you how to do things. I think that's great for you, and people I think genuinely have respect for that, which is great. I think one of the big examples in my career was again when I started Bluebat, and I kind of went from like a mid to senior designer
Sure.
to all of a sudden being like a director executive at a studio, and
Right.
like being like, how do you like I don't want to like I genuinely had a thought like there I had some pretty bad bosses, and I saw
Yeah.
some studios run ways that I disagreed with,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the group of like executives and myself we were like we don't want to do that,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to be like that,
Mm-hmm.
but how like how do we not be like that, what are our options and alternatives, and when we hit these like hard moments like sometimes we didn't know what to do, and so I
Right.
went on a big journey of like reaching out to people in similar positions, sitting down asking questions, going for coffee, reading a lot of books, just like having a desire and thirst for knowledge was really important, and the humility to know that I needed to grow.
That's really wonderful to hear though, because I feel like it, even for me getting into a people management role, I immediately was transported to younger me in a not so great working relationship with problematic managers and bosses,
Hmm.
and thinking, yeah, I mean, how do I avoid this trap of having a contentious relationship, or even like almost in a very like offhanded or dismissive way as well, of like managing people, because you can have that as well sometimes, and that's also, I feel like, sometimes it's damaging to somebody who just kind of lets you do whatever and you're like, please
Yeah.
give me guidance.
Hmm.
Yeah. What I mean, yeah, well, let's talk about leadership, because I feel like it's clearly something that you think a lot about, very thoughtful, and very careful about, I guess. What do you think is the hardest part of leadership?
Um, Good question. I really think first one of the things is continually being mindful and recognizing the position of power that you're in,
Mm,
the
yes.
impact that you have on people. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to just go like, oh, I'm just Greg and I've got an open door policy and anybody can come talk to me and it's good. Yeah, just let's hang out. But like that's not good enough. I think I think you forget that you are in a position of power and that creates social dynamics and people have anxieties about
Mm,
stuff like that. So how do you construct safe spaces for people to interact with you, and how do you give them space? How do you make sure that they know when you tell them something that it's feedback and not direction? It's stuff like that. It's like um, how do you make sure that somebody feels comfortable when you're being sarcastic with them?
right.
um,
Yeah.
how do you make sure you're getting feedback that you're doing a good job?
Wow. Do you do things like, say, for example, say to people like, because you mentioned open door policy, and that's just top of my mind right now. Um, yeah, I guess, how do you then circumvent that feeling of someone's like, oh, I don't want to bother him, he's really busy.
Mm.
How do you get over that, to like genuinely create those spaces for people to talk to you?
Oh, I hate the really busy one, because that's a thing that comes up a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, the first time I like noticed this again, going back to my Blue Bat days, and this is when I really started to grow into a leadership role.
Mhm.
Um, the company was 6 people when we started, and I was like, oh, I'm just Greg. And
We
literally, I
can
was
hang
just Greg.
out.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can hang out. It'll be
yeah.
fun. Go for beers after. It's all good.
Yeah.
And then like we started to succeed and we grew, and it was like 20 people and like 40 people, and like
Wow.
all of a sudden, I'm not just Greg, and I could feel that. So I'd say
Mhm.
like, oh, the door's open, just come talk to me, and like people wouldn't. I was like, why are they not doing this? And I think that's when I started to like know that like there was a power dynamic here, and it
Sure.
took me emotionally a little while to get over that too, because it kind of hurt like a little bit. I won't lie. I think like for people stepping into more senior leadership roles, like that's a thing you have to go through and a little bit grieve who you were
Mm,
in the past and accept who you are now. Like that's a thing. And
right.
talk more about that after. But
Yeah.
specifically for making space with people, something I like to do a lot is just like an example I used recently was just on Eve Online on one of the teams here. I just was like, hey, I would like to get to know you guys better.
Mm,
I want to know how I'm doing. Uh, I like getting feedback and I like talking to you guys. Who
mm,
wants to sit down for coffee with me and just chat sometime? And I even just like said, leave a little emoji response. And so a bunch of people did. And so I set up conversations with those people just on a couch. And I asked them, I'm like, how am I doing? Like, how am I impacting you? Like, do you feel sometimes like I've made changes either in design and like the designers are working with you in different ways, or like, have I ever done anything that made you feel frustrated or bad or anything like that? Like, I want to hear about this stuff so that I can do better. Like,
yeah. Wow, that's really cool. I can think of a few bosses I've had who could have done done with a little bit of that. To be fair, and has that? So I'm guessing that's actively come from your experience being the a scrappy individual contributor and being like, damn, I wish my bosses had done this with me.
Yeah, I think so, and a
Yeah.
little bit of like that again, like why aren't people talking to me? Well, they're not,
Yeah.
because they're like, maybe they don't know how, or maybe they're nervous to make that first step, and you kind of have to put that energy into arranging it as somebody in a leadership role,
Mm,
and you have to
mm,
make it safe for them. You have to like invite them in to criticize you, and like
yeah.
make sure that you know that then they know that it's okay for them to do that, and
Mm.
like if you want to excel as a lead, like feedback is the best thing you can
Oh,
get,
yes.
and
Yeah.
you're meant to be impacting like everyone around you.
Mm.
So get feedback from everyone around you, not just your boss or like the
Mm.
next guy over. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because, well, you mentioned this, and I really want to get into it. This idea of grieving the person you were because you have to accept your new reality as this new person, this new paradigm. And also, I feel like a big part of that is like this understanding that you're not going to be in touch with certain things as you used to be. That's also
Mhm.
a little bit like scary. Yeah, would you
Yeah.
like to talk a little bit about like yeah, accepting that new reality and what that looked like for you?
Yeah, I think like I wish I had a mentor when this was happening to
Mm,
like coach me through this. I just kind of
sure.
stumbled through it. It hurt a little bit, to be honest, because
Yeah.
like you start to become excluded from things, right?
Yes.
Like you're no longer invited to this private Slack channels, like where people
Mm,
bitch about things, because they're gonna bitch about you sometimes, and you think you have to also accept like sometimes as a leader you have massive impact on people,
yeah.
and sometimes it's not always positive. You're gonna frustrate people,
Yeah.
whether it's on purpose or not,
Hmm.
and like they're gonna be like, well, fuck Greg. Like they need a space to do that sometimes. And like you have to
Yeah.
like come to like terms with that a little bit too, and being like, oh, I don't like that. But also like they need that.
Yeah.
They need to have that space to do that. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't really impact me or what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think just coming to terms with that, um, finding you know new new spaces and new ways to like express yourself socially as well. I think like a good example is, I think when I was just Greg, when I was an individual contributor on a team, it was like, let's go for beers every night. And now that I'm in a leadership position, I feel like my friends groups and my dynamics have changed a little bit. I'm not always going out for beers with people and coworkers. Also, I'm older and like don't do that much. But,
Yeah.
uh, I find myself more looking for friends outside of just my work friends and stuff like that,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
and ways to kind of have my social time with people.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was younger and like working a lot, I was very much just like hanging out with my coworker buddies all the time.
Mm. Yeah, I guess yeah, it's a totally different dynamic, right? When you're all on the same level and you all kind of have the
Hmm.
same worries and the stresses, but like yeah, it can feel a bit like ooh, there's some strange boundary of like hanging out with your boss. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's not necessarily something as an individual contributor that like you want to see that person in that light. Per
yeah.
se, it's like hanging out with a teacher. You're like, huh, this is
Yeah, yeah.
this is
It's and
yeah,
it's like kind of cool for like once in a while, but
yeah,
like it's not what you want all the time.
yeah.
And I think that's a part of it too, is you start to notice, like, hopefully if you're very aware, maybe some people aren't, I've noticed, but like
Mm,
if you're aware, you're like, oh, when I'm in this space, people aren't themselves. Like they're a little bit different here.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Even if I show up to a meeting, like I notice there's some meetings I go to that just the vibe's different. And
Hmm.
people are like way more sometimes performative, because they're like, oh, boss is here, I've got to like be impressive. And I'm like, this meeting would be better with me not here. Like you guys would just
Yeah.
collaborate better and like have more fun and be creative if I wasn't here. So
Wow, that's
yeah.
so interesting. Now that's something that doesn't get talked a lot about as well because yeah, what I guess creating the spaces as you mentioned earlier, it seems like a big part of that is knowing when the spaces have the benefit of you not being there, which is not something that everyone like loves to grapple with like oh the space would be better with me not being here, but
Mhm.
generally that's true. Yeah, that's so true. I've been in several things where you think there's a certain person there and you're like oh we're all kind of on our best behavior and we're not really being ourselves because this
Mhm.
this person is here, so that's really interesting. um and in terms of leadership, I mean, do you have feel free to get as vulnerable as you like, but do you
Mhm.
feel like you're actively working on things that you know are gaps, or a work in progress for you as a leader?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think so. I'll be vulnerable. My biggest challenge, I think, as a person is I'm a people pleaser,
Mm,
and it's way too easy for me to just like want to make people happy.
yeah.
In a leadership role, like that's often not the best thing
Mm-hmm.
you can do for
Mm-hmm.
people. Sometimes you have to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to give somebody very clear and direct feedback about how they're working and like how you need them to work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good. It feels real bad
Yeah.
sometimes. And so like
Yeah.
that's the thing that I'm constantly working on. Personally, in the past, I've been conflict avoidant. Like I've really
Oh,
tried to not butt heads with people, just get along with everybody. And again, I think like I find the most personal growth and the most growth as a leadership when I'm willing to like say the hard things and like have the hard conversations with people.
yes.
And um, and you have to do it a lot when you get to my level. You have to have lots of like challenging conversations,
Mm,
not just people like below you, but like above you as well. You have to go to the CEO and tell the CEO that you think this is a bad strategy that's going to cause the company to fail or something, and say hard
yeah.
things like that. And like you might be thinking it, but like if you're willing to say the things and have kindness and empathy and respect behind those things,
Yeah.
it can be really powerful. But it's not exciting and it's not awesome and it doesn't always feel good to do these things.
No, it doesn't feel terribly sexy, does it? But yeah, I mean,
No.
again, I definitely filed that under the underrated skills column as well, in
Mhm.
terms of, having like being able to take, initiate difficult conversations, and also to be the recipient of one and take it with grace as well. Because,
Mhm. Yeah.
okay, can I ask, have you been in a situation where somebody did give you feedback about you and your leadership style? You had to kind of really be quite mindful about your reaction, because I feel like as a leader, you do have to be really mindful about how you react to things too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Like that hasn't been as much of a struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm good at receiving feedback,
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I'm trying to think of a time where I got good feedback or something. I think
Yeah.
the best feedback I ever had and like the biggest impact feedback I ever had was when I was again back at Blue Bat. So I
Mm-hmm.
was the creative director and then I stepped into the chief creative officer role. I
Mm.
promoted my lead artist into the creative director role. And like a couple months into the job, she was like, hey, Greg, can you stop doing my job? And
Oh.
I was like, oof, that
Ooh.
it like hit me. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
Does not feel good. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I like doing the creative director stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I really like it. And
Yeah.
I'm still doing it because like habitually I've been doing it. But in doing that, I'm not giving you space to like step into the role and
Yeah.
do that stuff. And so I got to stop.
And let somebody else succeed as well. That's a really big part of it. So we've talked a lot about creativity and structure. Would you have any tips you'd like to share for game devs to balance that line between structure and creativity? Because, like, you can lean really so much into process, and then it can feel really bureaucratic as a result. But you can also lean in a lot into like creativity, but that way lies chaos as well. And at the end of the day, you have to like put together this product which is like functional and fun and all of these things. So yeah, the balance between structure and creativity.
Yeah, I think the first is notice when the structure is making you not creative. I think that's an
Mm,
important one.
yeah.
And be open to having hard conversations and asking for what you need to make
Mm,
that space. If that's more time, like keep asking for more time and more space.
yeah.
Be an advocate for that. Listen to your coworkers and peers and people around you too, and try to advocate and support their needs. The next one I think really is like learn how to give yourself space to be creative. Like, it's in this digital world, it's easy for me to just roll out of bed and like look at Slack right in the morning when I'm having my coffee, and then I get sucked into like 50 conversations.
Sure.
But what if instead I just said, like, I'm not looking at it until I get to work? But in the morning, I like to think about like my game and stuff. So I'm going to boot it up. I'm going to play it for a bit. Maybe I'll draw some stuff. I'm going to put my phone away. Like, don't look at that. Don't go into TikTok. Don't go into LinkedIn. Don't go anywhere. Just like stay in your space. Don't get sucked into something else. Often we're just not making space for ourselves too. So I think that's a little bit of the structure versus creative stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, I'm according people pleasers, I've noticed, yeah, like looking in the mirror here, but I think it's really, I find it's really easy to give advice to friends and coworkers that you don't follow yourself. And it's really interesting that you say that, like, you try to empower other people by giving them time and space. And then do you find it hard to follow your own advice sometimes in that way?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, which is why you have to, I think, build systems for yourself too, and rules, and try to follow them as well. Like your own structure, which
Yeah.
is like, don't look at Slack, Greg. Don't do it.
Don't doom scroll right before bed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Or just take it off your phone. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
very
I'm
true.
looking at Slack too much. It is gone. I'm going to just look at it when I get to my computer.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean that's really good advice as well. I think creating the spaces, people think about like physical spaces, but actually digital ones as well. Like my whatever is on my phone is nothing work related, because I know that I'm going to do the work stuff at my laptop. That's something that I try to think about. Or like this room that I'm in is where the place where I do work, but other places in
Hmm.
the house is where I do things for myself. So yeah, that's a really great one to think about as well. Set up
I'd
your
also
systems.
say set boundaries. Boundaries is a good one, especially
Mm.
like the more senior you get. So a thing I notice is like there's a lot of like, I'm going to say this in a good way, performative leadership where like people feel like they need to be constantly on, and
Mm.
like their success is like how much they are seen effectively. Like, I'm doing things,
Ooh.
I'm having a conversation. It's 8 p.m. on Saturday, and I'm texting on Slack and giving
Ah.
feedback.
Yeah.
And I think like um, I try to set boundaries when I start somewhere, and I'm like, I don't do that. I'm
Mm.
not going to do that. I
Mm.
don't want that to be seen as like a part of my success or failure here. Like, if all the other leads do that, that's fine. I'm not going to do that. And I just like tell my boss, like, if it's a special case, like an emergency, or like we're shipping a thing and we need a little extra time, like, let's have a conversation about that first. But like, I don't want to get sucked into that, because I don't think that produces as much value as people think it does.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes your space and time, and everything. And I'm sure everybody has seen that to some extent.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, back to your point about the unintended consequences of your actions and how you communicate as a leader. I think that's definitely one I've seen a lot where, a leader might be like, oh, okay, I've just got some like extra work to do. I'm going to like reply to stuff at like you say, like 8 p.m. on a Saturday. But like, an individual contributor who hasn't built up that resilience and that self advocacy is
Mhm.
probably thinking to themselves, "Oh no, have I also got to do that? you know,
Yeah.
am I also expected to do that?" That and
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and I think leading by example is like a huge one, for setting up boundaries as well. Actually, we've got a really unique opportunity here because like I
Mhm.
feel like I get lots of people asking, oh, this person is so senior. I don't know how to talk to them and I don't know how to advocate for myself. When you're talking to people who are like fairly like really junior, very entry level in their careers, like what things would you like to see from people when they are communicating with you?
Um, First of all, like, I mean, I have social anxiety. Like, I have it, they have it, we all have it.
Yeah.
in this role. I'm just a person.
Yeah.
Like this is what I tell people. They're like, I've had people be like, "Oh, you're so easy to talk to." Like I'm shocked, and I'm like, I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I really think just remember that like they're just people.
Yeah.
And we have social anxiety too. Just be aware of that. I think, and I really like to hear like what makes people happy and enthusiastic. Like what gets them fired up and excited about things. Like I'm an old crusty curmudgeon, and I've seen it all, but I love feeling through other people. Like that's how I am as a person. So like
Yeah.
when somebody else is like, oh, I really want to make a game like this and learn how to do these things, and I'm like, yes, this is super exciting, and I want to help you, and like tell me about this stuff, because it fuels my fire.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I feel excited when other people are excited, and I
Yeah.
feel that like somebody could be telling me about a hobby that like I have I personally have no interest in, but if they're excited about it, I'm like, I love that for you. Tell me about it. You're clearly very excited about it. That's really cool. And do you get people kind of messaging you because of your title and wanting to ask you questions? Do you have any tips on like like if you are approaching someone senior in an industry, like best practices on how to do that?
Um, Good question. I don't know. Like, to be honest, people do reach out now and again. I wish more would. I really like connecting with people who are like starting out their careers and like having conversations and helping out. So like if you're seeing this and you want to chat, please, yeah, just message me. And like if you want a resume review or me to like feedback or advice or I don't know, talk about game design, anything. It's cool. Like again, I'm just a guy. Be patient. Like a lot of people who are in leadership roles are often very busy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm a slow responder because like I'm just tired. I get home and I've like had meeting after meeting after meeting all day,
Oh,
and I'm like,
totally.
I
Yeah.
don't want to look at LinkedIn and talk to people. But like I might get back to you a week later, kind of thing. So have
Yeah,
patience. I think that's a good
that's a
practice.
great
Like if
one.
somebody's not responding, it's not because they don't like you or they're annoyed by you or anything like that. It's just like sometimes I'm just tired, and when you get home to your safe space, you just want to like not.
Yeah, I get on a little blanket cocoon at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Sometimes if I've had too many meetings, I'm like, oh, I need to isolate. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, that's having patience is a really key one. Yeah, totally. I think, don't take it personally if people don't reply back to you. Like the thing that I always, because I'm a marketer in my day job, and it's really become apparent to me how there are so many more channels now to contact people. So people aren't necessarily checking their Discord, LinkedIn, Slack, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger
Hmm.
all of the time. And so if you've reached out to someone and they haven't got back to you straight away, just wait. It's okay. They haven't.
Yep.
Yeah, they're probably just in a little blanket cocoon eating a cheese.
I'm also so super okay with people following up. Like
Yeah.
if a week or two goes by and like maybe my LinkedIn messages have like piled up or something and somebody's saying like, hey, just reminder I'm still here and I'd still like to chat sometime. That's totally okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. I think
Yeah.
you're just a nice guy. You're just a guy. Just people.
Just a guy.
You're just a guy.
Just people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like we've covered so many really great things, and we've got it on video, guys. Just have patience. Just approach someone with the same empathy that you would anybody else. Just because someone is, got like director or lead in their job title doesn't make them not a person. They're just kind of busier. So go out there, start talking to people, start networking. So, Greg, we've come to the fun bit of the conversation, even though this whole conversation has actually been really fun for me. I could talk about process all day long. But I wanted to ask you the first hard hitting question, probably, of the interview, which is, what's your favorite game?
Yeah, I hate this question. It's the worst.
It's too
But
hard.
I'll give you my layered answer. I'm going to give you
Okay.
two
All
answers.
right.
I don't know if it's fair, but I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
One is like my favorite like classic game of youth, and one is my favorite modern game.
Okay, I love
So
that. Yes.
my favorite classic game of youth is probably Final Fantasy VII. I know that might be
Oh, that's
contentious
nice.
for some people, but like it got me. It got me the right age, the right
Yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the newness, the
The
music,
music, yeah,
the
absolutely.
mystery. It was all it did all the things.
Yeah.
And modern,
Hmm.
my favorite game is probably Ghost of Tsushima.
Wow, it is a gorgeous game though. And is it about Ghost of Tsushima? Because like like the older classic games, like we know there's like that feeling of wonder and mystery. But like as a game dev yourself, is there an element of like, oh my God, how did they do that? Oh, how did they think of that? Is there an element of that when it comes to Ghost of Tsushima?
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. I
yeah.
mean, I think a lot of my time now and where I am in my career
Mm.
is I've spent so much time analyzing games and thinking so like deeply and critically of them that now I try to like actively not do that.
Yes.
And that was one I found it easy to do that with.
Oh,
But my wonder there is really so, as I mentioned, I had a little like side adventure in Japan. I actually lived in Japan and like studied and trained under a master swordsman for a while.
wow.
Um, and so like
Okay.
that game like
Yeah.
really resonated with me
Yeah.
on that level. And I think for me, it was really like how they just mastered capturing that culture and that era,
Hmm.
both in a world artistically, but also mechanically. I think like it's really easy to do that style of like Japanese sword fighting wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they were still able to video game it, make it fun, but capture the heart of like in the spirit of what like that kind of swordplay is like. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was what was really captivating to me.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, it achieves such a sense of like precision, with very clever, yeah, mechanics and the feeling. I mean, I think for me, what I really loved about that game is this feeling of immersion and very minimal UI, and the wind blowing, pointing you to the way of like where you need to go next. Just like little touches like that. I love that as well. So yeah, great answers. Yeah, oh, it's inspired me to want to replay it at some point. How do you unplug from work or touch grass, as the kids say nowadays?
I have a dog that helps. I have to take my dog for
Yes,
walks. Get a dog.
get a
Dogs
dog.
are great. So, um, yeah, I really value my outside time.
Hmm.
Like actually going outside into nature. So making sure that I make the time to do that is really important. My
Yeah.
dog legitimately helps me. Being here in Iceland is super cool. I think like basically your choice is to be inside all the time or to go into nature. Like there's kind of not an in between. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna go like hang out at a place. Like it's quite a small place here. And then
Hmm.
there's beautiful nature, but you've got to like go out into it. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. I kind of just put myself in situations where I'm like, like I want this,
Yeah.
and I will actively make it a part of my life. Um, but that's it. I think you have to try. You have to want a thing, and you have to make time and space for it. Just like
Mm.
being creative.
Well, I mean, spoken like a true game design director, designing the systems for yourself to do that. Yeah, I think it's really
Mm,
important, and having a really cute dog helps as well. Um,
it's true.
I have seen pictures of the dog. Lives up to
Mizu's
expectations.
adorable.
Mizu is wonderful. Looks like a little toasted marshmallow with a tail.
Hmm.
Love it. So, okay, so this is a question I really love asking because I love talking to people who have that sort of like planner design part of their brain. So you can take your pick of either of the questions below, which is you've been tasked with organizing a party, or you get to design a theme park with an unlimited budget. So, theme park party, where are you
Let's go
leaning?
with the party. Let's go with the party.
Let's go with the party. Okay, so first question: what's the party for? What is the occasion? Dream
Do you
party.
need one?
Oh, it's just like a yeah, it's just a
Let's
party
just have a
because
party.
let's just have a
Let's have a
party.
party, man.
I love it. Okay, yes, all right. So who's on your dream planning team for this party? Who are you bringing along with you to plan this party?
Hmm. So I'm thinking like fictional characters here.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, we
Um,
can do fictional. Totally.
and my brain goes to like video games because
Uh,
and immediately like my mind starts to think about like villains for some reason. I'm like,
Villains
those guys know how to
are
get it
they've
done.
got a sense of place. They
Yeah.
have a sense of like making an entrance. Yeah, I can't think of Yeah, better.
Sephiroth cordially invites you to Greg's whatever man party.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, villains like, sure, let's get Sephiroth on the team. Let's get him out there, like
Sephiroth would
tracking people
make a
down, getting
moment.
stuff done.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if he like showed up on your door and was like, "You're invited to a party," would you say no?
Absolutely not. I'd be like, be rude not to actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm absolutely
exactly.
coming. Yeah.
So here's my a spoilery answer. If you
Okay.
know, you know.
Okay.
If you are playing Baldur's Gate 3 and you haven't finished it, stop.
Yeah.
Maybe like
Yeah.
this is a good part for you to know about. Spoiler warning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're good with spoilers. Can I
I'm
can I
good.
do
I'm
this?
good. Yep, I've
You're
played
good.
it through.
Okay.
Yep.
Withers. Withers man.
Withers, absolutely. Withers, I feel like, is one of those people that looks like, kind of stiff and like whatever on the outside, but I think he would throw a crazy rave, actually.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
knows how to throw.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We got into to the end. So party.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, incredible. And I'd love to let's visualize what this party looks like. What's the aesthetic? What is the feeling? What music is playing?
Space themed.
Space theme.
Yeah,
Okay.
space themed.
I love. Yeah.
So like stars and planets and like nebulas and stuff like
Oh my
that.
gosh. Like galaxy lighting. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can see that. And most importantly, who's invited to your party? And we can talk about fictional characters as well.
I mean, you're invited to my party.
Oh, clearly I am. Yes. So, okay, great, amazing.
And all the dogs are invited to my party.
I can imagine. Oh, is Mizu at the party? And does Mizu have a little outfit on?
Yes, Mizu's there. She does not have an outfit on because she will protest too strongly.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we need to make sure Mizu's
Party
comfortable.
naked.
That's wonderful. Okay, well, I can't wait for this party to happen. We'll get in touch with Sephiroth and Withers at some point.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get our people to get in touch
Hook
with
me
their
up
people.
if you know their numbers. Like, just send me their IDs.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get the deets on the go. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the podcast episodes. Another structured creativity done in the bag. That flew by. I feel like we were only talking for like 5 minutes. I don't know about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many wonderful things that you shared and really great advice just all around. So where can people find you on the internet if they want to reach out to you?
LinkedIn. I'm not a huge social media guy, so LinkedIn's the place. That's where I am. My name, Greg Hennessey. That's it.
That's it. Super easy. Yeah. That's it. And is there anything that you'd like to share with people? Is there anything that you, I guess, want to promote or put out there? And it can be a phrase as well. That is totally valid.
I don't know. I just be good to people. That's it. Make your career being good to people. That's what I'm going to leave you on.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. Be good to people, including yourself.
Including yourself.
That being said, thank you so much, Greg, for joining me. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Hell yeah.
Let's say bye to people. Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening.